Alright, so what my goal is today is, like, in the my announcement, I kind of called this the Halloween costume assignment. And I'm going to take a cartoon character and make him look like a real person. So I have to first start with the real person. So I've kind of cast my person, and you might be familiar with this guy. In fact, you might have seen some of his TV shows or movies. And right now I am just stealing angles. That's all I'm doing. I'm kind of sketching them out. And you can kind of see as I'm going through this, I am using a lot, I mean a ridiculous amount of sighting skills. Now, part of my problem is, while I'm doing this, is I'm trying to figure out how much this I really have to draw, because there should be a fair amount of this I'm going to have to erase to turn him into the cartoon character. There's that, and I'm never quite sure if my battery's dying on me while I'm going. And if you notice, as I draw, I'm kind of all over the place. I work a little here, I work a little there. In reality, that's probably my attention deficit peeking through. The upside of having attention deficit, you tend to see the whole picture, because you're working on the whole picture at the same time. The downside is people just don't get how you see what you see. But then again, I don't get how they see what they see. Notice there's kind of a 3/4 view to this guy's face. So this half is going to be shortened. There's also this big distortion in his glasses. Like, his prescription is crazy strong. And you can tell that because his face shifts over and actually looks like it's farther over. It probably does this in reality, but the glasses are making everything bigger. I might have dropped his mouth a little too low. That's what I'm starting to look at now. That's alright. I'll just change, I'll move it up some. Now once you have your reference, whether you're keeping it on your phone or you're keeping it on your Chromebook or your computer, don't lose it. Mark it. Give it a name. Something you will remember so you can get back to it when you need to. The other thing that we're going to do with this is, hopefully you're going to attempt this as a watercolor. Now normally when you draw for a watercolor, you do not leave this many lines. You don't press as hard as this. and because that'll cause issues. These lines would show through the watercolor. Right. But this is not going to be my final paperwork for my watercolor. I'm probably going to trace this onto another sheet of paper to use as my watercolor. So if I have some lines that are sketchy in this, I just won't trace them. You know, I'll look at it and be like, oh, okay, this is where I was going with this. This is where I wanted it to be. I'll keep this, I'll ignore that. I don't even really have that great of a photo that I'm working from. There's not like a lot of high contrast going on here. That helped a little bit. Part of what you do when you do watercolor is you draw very lightly, you draw very clean. And that way you can always go back and erase. Well, I mean, in that way you don't really see your pencils when you're doing the rest of your drawing. Downside of drawing at the big table is usually I do it while I'm watching a TV show. I didn't really, because it distracts me from what's going on in my head, which is everything. Alright, so let me take another quick look up and see if my camera's still blinking. It's still recording. I'm hesitant to fill in this ear because I have this feeling I'm going to erase it pretty soon. Alright, so I'm going to pause this right here for the time being. And I'm going to go feed my dogs, get some new batteries, and I will be back in a little bit. Okay, I still need to replace batteries, but I'm starting to feel bad for the environment. So with that in mind, I will start on my next picture here. I'll set aside that reference for a little bit. I'll slide this way. Alright, so I'm pretty much in frame. And now I'm just going to start pulling some of these lines to the side. As you can see, I'm on kind of a Danny theme here. I've got Danny DeVito, I got Danny Trejo. So Danny Trejo's got very heavily angled eyes. He's got a very wrinkly Keith Richards face. That's about the right distance. Sometimes I just check distances against themselves. Those two line up? Yeah, they do. I gotta drop this some more. So, sometimes it doesn't hurt to check yourself. Alright, so my battery did die on me, as predicted. So now I'm just kind of going back in, trying to make this look a lot more like Danny Trejo. I really want to start adding pock marks in his face and things, but if this is eventually going to be a watercolor, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to do that right now. And this is really one of those I could just keep working on and working on and working on, and even come back to my other Danny and start adding some shadows. Whatever the case may be. I kept him a lot simpler than I did Danny Trejo. I like drawing Danny Trejo because he's got so many wrinkles. Alright, now, here comes the part that's going to be the fun part. I have to turn these two into these two. So, with that in mind, here's what I'm going to do. Now, my biggest problem with this is, do I take his nose away? Because Finn doesn't have a nose. So I could technically just erase his nose at this point and then give him a snaggletooth or two. I'm not sure how I feel about either one. So maybe we're going to move on to the other one for a second. Okay. On the upside, I kind of feel that Danny Trejo's mustache will fill in nicely for whatever this flob on this pug is supposed to be. Alright. We also have the ability to give him some pendulous floppy ears. All right, it's not very pretty, but it's I think it's enough at this moment that I can take and trace this tomorrow onto some different paper and be where I need to be for the rest of the project. So I will leave this where we are today, and then hopefully, and I will see you in the next video. Be good, stay out of trouble. If you can't stay out of trouble, don't get caught.